Why is journalism in the cryptocurrency industry just so bad? And what can we do to maybe fix it? There's no hiding the unfortunate reality that journalism and news sites and all that in the cryptocurrency world specifically is just not to par. Whether it's sensationalist or just poorly done or horrifically biased or whatever else, a reliable and trustworthy source of news is kind of hard to come by. And I know that this is a problem with journalism in general these days, but it's just much more exacerbated in the cryptocurrency industry, which has kind of come up recently. And there's just not a lot of knowledge about that. There's not a lot of money. There's not a lot of demand, things like that. And so we end up with some really bad coverage a lot of times, which ends up driving prices in markets and making or breaking projects. And seeing how laughably bad it can be at some time, this is something we really need to kind of figure out how to fix sooner rather than later. So I'll go into some of the problems with cryptocurrency journalism today and kind of look at why they became that way, and then maybe take a little stab at solutions. Although unlike other subjects where I had a little bit more of a clear idea of what can be done to fix this, I have some ideas that I think could help, but I really don't fully know how to solve this yet. But that's the beauty of a free market and an open source environment, right? Anyone can contribute to trying to fix something, and then solutions get presented from the greater mind share of the world, and things work out great. And so I'm not really worried that this won't ever be solved, but might as well get a crack at it now. Okay, enough rambling. First, on to the problems. One of the biggest and most annoying problems is sensationalism, which of course is a big thing in news in general. But the thing is with crypto, everyone's looking for the next big thing, the next big announcement that's going to pump a price of something. And so you see journalists writing these articles about so-and-so expert could say Bitcoin could increase 5-fold in the next couple months. Oh my gosh. Or scam detected and this and that, or this exchange gonna do that, or warning, hack, theft, oh, the regulation is gonna ban crypto in every single country. The list just goes on. There's all kinds of stuff like this. It's pretty hard to have reasonable coverage of current events in the crypto space in general. The premier example of this recently is a CoinDesk article on non-fungible tokens and influencers that was absolutely dripping with negative and salacious allusions. The piece in particular targeted influencer Crypto Finally, with allusions to her work constituting sex work, allusions which are alleged to have caused reputation damage and lost work as a result. The same author was responsible for a positive story on Dash years ago, which nonetheless was filled with unfair negative allusions and downplaying the positives, as well as inaccuracies. To date, the author remains unapologetic and blissfully unaware of why people in the space are hesitant to have her cover their projects. Next, beyond just sensationalist, it's lazy. I find a lot of articles that are basically like copy and paste stuff, poorly written, bad English, just saying like the bare minimum with almost no facts or anything like that, often leading to inaccuracies or just like a poor coverage of the situation, just to get something out there that kind of has the headline that includes the subject, and just the rest can be just anything. This is something that I find is particularly different from the legacy media platforms, where at least, as bad as journalism is today, you'll find articles that are well written, as in, they sound okay, and are extensive enough as far as things that are sourced, what they say, different aspects that are covered. Even if there's a whole lot of stuff that's wrong with the way it's covered, even if there's inaccuracies or anything, at least it just reads like a thoroughly researched, well done piece. Whereas with crypto, it's like random low quality bloggers, you know what I'm saying? Just anything goes in is passed for like news and proper journalism. For example, Dash came into public view as Darkcoin, a project focused on its privacy-enhancing CoinJoin implementation in 2014, but rebranded to Dash in 2015, and for the past 6 years straight has focused on fast and secure payments, scalability, decentralized governance, and usability in decentralized applications. Yet to this day, publications continue to simply refer to the project as a privacy coin, despite many corrections. And finally, and worst of course, is inaccurate. There's so many inaccuracies in the crypto media, where just basic facts are gotten wrong, or more major facts are gotten wrong. And rather than just lazy or sensational, a lot of this could be actively malicious or something else. But the worst part about it is the tolerance to that. You have pieces that are allowed to stand up after getting things completely wrong, and despite being corrected, just whatever, they just move on, they don't care. The worst part of this is you will find things that aren't corrected on major publications on the very top of the heap. You'll find just glaring inaccuracies and faults just left out there. And it doesn't matter how respected or large the publication is, this could have been a problem that would be fixed even in the horrible mainstream media news of other segments such as politics. Just glaring inaccuracies like that are just left in and no one really seems to care. Once again, we go to CoinDesk, because it's supposed to be the most trusted publication, yet puts out some really shoddy work. They did a terrible hit piece on Dash a few years back, to which Dash Core Group CEO Ryan Taylor responded with an impressive tweet storm pointing out all the inaccuracies. The piece wasn't updated. Now, why did crypto journalism end up in this sad state of affairs? Well, it's a mix, in my opinion, between just the problems that are facing journalism as a whole today, and in problems that are facing crypto in particular because of how new of an industry it is. Of course, being new is one of those big things. First off, there's not an established industry that really works on just covering this stuff, because the industry itself is not very established. And also, this is radically new technology. Very few people understand really how blockchains work, or they might know what the difference between proof of work and proof of stake is, but they have no idea what the block interval is and why it's different for some things, and why you can't just scale on chain, or you can, or whatever. Just, there's a lot of knowledge gap. And so the average writer just doesn't really have that pool of well-known information to draw from initially when getting started. And so as the industry matures, you'll see less of this, in my view. You'll see more information readily available to people. More people will be building on that information, rather than just now no one knows anything, and it's very clear in the journalism that comes out. And the other thing that has a lot to do with how new the industry is, but is also just kind of the way it shook out, is speculation leads to sensationalism. It's a very speculation-based market where I want to know if this project is actually building this kind of a solution, because my business and other people's business or whatever are going to actually start using it, and then they can start making money off of that. And therefore this information being accurate is huge to me, because I can build a business off of this, or some of the businesses I'm invested in could go up in valuation because of this new development. It's like whatever news makes people think, oh my gosh, it's going to pump, and then they throw their money behind it, and they don't care if the news is inaccurate. They care if the news makes it pump. And so you have a lot of people prioritizing sensationalism over accuracy, because that's what really matters. I mean, look at this little Doge back here. Dogecoin was just a joke coin that was slowly sliding down the market cap rankings as more and more legit projects started coming, not even being developed on actively as far as I'm aware. And just because Elon Musk starts tweeting about it, all of a sudden, whoa, people are just start throwing money into it, not because they think it's actually going to be used or it's actually the future or anything, but because any kind of coverage of it, including just by a celebrity on Twitter, is just, it pumps. And like, whoa, did Elon buy any? Probably not, but then that doesn't tank the price once the truth comes out or it gets, speculated on. People just say, I don't know, he talked about it, pump it. And so as long as we have this speculation first crypto economy, I think we're going to have this problem of people don't really care that much about accuracy. This extends to audiences as well. I received death threats over an article on darknet markets back in the day, even though they couldn't find anything inaccurate I had said. They were simply upset that the Monero price tanked sharply after the article came out. And of course, finally, the same problems that face legacy media platforms, which is there's no real good profit and revenue model other than getting as many clicks as you can in order to drive money from advertisers. Now, in the old days, of course, people used to buy a newspaper, and so they'd pay money for the one that they trusted, and then you have that direct customer to business relationship to a certain extent. Over time, people could find this information somewhere else online easily for free, and so they were not paying for it as much. And then now the sites decide to get as much free usage on them as possible so they can actually get paid in advertising revenue from the ads that they put. And so that completely flipped the profit motive on its head, where now instead of trying to make the customer happy so that they keep paying you, they don't pay you at all. So you're just trying to get the actual customer's attention, but you don't want to make them happy. You just want to get more attention out of them. You're farming them. They're not customers. They're farm animals to you. And of course, this creates all kinds of bad incentives, such as sensationalism, where you just want as much engagement as possible. You don't mind the quality of it. You don't mind if you are called out for being a fraud or a liar or whatever. If then the next time you publish, more people still come and view your stuff. That's all you care about under this model. This is similar to the problem facing modern social media networks, which I outlined in detail in a previous video. So how can we fix this whole thing? Well, there's a few suggestions I have. Of course, not perfect, but one of the biggest things we could do is find a way to restore that customer service relationship, where you have the customer and the service, and the customer's paying the service for what they want out of it. Of course, this is very difficult in the age of free everything. Everything's free online, but it's not impossible. One of the reasons why paid subscriptions have not worked very well in the past is, first off, let's be honest, the readers did not value on the whole what they were paying and subscribing for, and that's on the fault of the newspaper themselves. But also, the payment aspect of it is just so full of friction because, okay, what do you do when you hit a paywall? Let me go, it's $12.99 per month to unlock these articles, and like, all right, so I have to pay this much money just to I'm just not going to do it. Or you decide to do it and you click, all right, well, put in your credit card information, big long ticket, put out the number, put in this, okay, verify this, and then you get a charge, and then it's just such a pain in the butt to go through. What if you could just get to an article and then just say, okay, you want to pay it 1 cent? Sure. The problem is, where's your 1 cent? Oh, you have to put in your credit card. No one cares. Okay. But if there's a button you could just hit and zap, it just zaps over a cent worth of cryptocurrency. Who would care if you read 12 articles in a day and you paid a total of 12 cents because there's 12 of them, you paid a cent each? No one would mind that as long as you don't have the friction of having to pay and, credit card fees and things like that make it, not really usable. But what if you had your little digital wallet or a little browser extension? You could just hit go and it would just unlock it. And then that's it. You just don't run out of money for a long time just reading. People would actually rack up significant bills reading articles and stuff like that if they were really interested in it. If the friction, the amount is low enough, and then the friction of actually getting the payment through is low enough. And by basically fixing the money, because the money systems today suck, by fixing the money and making them actually work for people, work for the consumer, I think that could really restore this old model of, customer pays, and then there you go. This could particularly work now that the cost of actually generating journalism is much lower, in that you don't have to have a large physical building and a whole bunch of staff members and all this kind of production stuff. You could just be one person like me, just sitting behind their computer looking stuff up, and that can be it. And they can actually collect the money directly, whether through donations or subscriptions or whatever. That system makes it a lot easier for people to actually pay to support people that they agree with, and not just, well, this whole newspaper and, I'm going to pay all of them, and then only a little bit goes to the guy that I like to support here. And so having alternative models to this would make this a lot of an easier thing to give to for the average person. I already use both of these to support my channel. A good chunk of what I get comes from Cointree, as well as Library, between donations, payments to access my paywalled content, and the subsidy by Library Inc. to incentivize creators to move over. BIP70 is a payment protocol that, among other things, lets you spend cryptocurrency payments to multiple destinations with a single transaction. This can be used to split donations automatically among different journalists and the platform itself. Another thing could be the possibility of blockchain accuracy scores, which of course is a slippery slope. Whenever you try to verify something as a single source of truth, people are always going to be disagreeing, always going to be fighting about that. But let's just say you have a trusted group of people who verify things that people tend to, agree with, or a few different ones of them, and then someone puts out a story or a fact or something like that that is considered accurate or inaccurate, and then these people all chime in. If there's a majority, whatever, that's verified on a certain blockchain, right? And then you basically keep a running tally according to one group. But of course, there can be lots of competitors in the space too, in case, well, these guys are biased, we don't trust them, let's make another group that works well. Basically, as long as there's a public record of endorsements and verifying and all that kind of stuff based on each single piece that is put out by every single author and publication in a blind peer-reviewed way especially, then you can kind of keep a record of how many times people were acknowledged to be right and correct, and or versus every time that they were saying stupid things. Obviously, there's a ton of subjectivity in here, but at least there's a record that anyone can view and no one can really tamper with, that you could actually look at over time and just say, well, these people tell the truth accurately over time, and anyone can go verify this according to this. Or these people kind of don't. These people are, full of it. These people are full of it, right? And you can even create an easy nonprofit-like structure for giving financial awards to people who consistently tell the truth. Let's just say you have the Blockchain Truth Fund. Every month or every year, they give a bonus to people who have been thought of as being very accurate. And so people donate to this fund, and then you have this fund, and based on people and publications' track record, they could qualify for the award or not. And if you qualify for the award, then they send the money in, as I mentioned earlier with the BIP 70 invoices, then it could go split and then all the authors get it, or it could go to one author in particular, and then the others that work for the publication or the publication itself gets a little bit of that as well. However it shakes out, it would be good to actually financially incentivize some kind of, truth telling. And of course, in a hotly contested world of rapidly breaking news and also a lot of disagreement over what even is true or is not, this could end up being a little bit tricky. But as long as people can do whatever they want without restriction, and then you let solutions that incentivize good behavior versus bad behavior crop up organically around that with the right tools, I think that could avoid a lot of these sorts of problems. And finally, one thing I think would be really kind of cool to experiment with is prediction market style betting on accuracy. So imagine this, right? You are a journalist and you cover a breaking story. Of course, you get a lot more attention and a lot more, fanfare. You get a lot more donations maybe. Basically, it's good for you if you're the guy to break a story. However, say you try to break a story, you have to put up a bet that your story is accurate, or is going to stand the test of time. And so let's say you put like $100 worth of crypto, and you bet on it being accurate. And then over time, you heard a rumor, you didn't fact check it correctly, and then, later they figure out that this was not indeed accurate. And then guess what? You lose your money. You bet on it, you bet on yourself being accurate, and you weren't, so you lose the money. And over time, you can go broke using this system if you aren't careful with what you do. Of course, if you're accurate most of the time, you end up making money because you're betting on yourself to be accurate and proven accurate over time. And when you are proven accurate, then there we go. People who bet you weren't, they lose money and you make money. So if you have a winning track record, you end up making money by being accurate. And once in a while, there will be some breaking news thing you might be a little hesitant on because it's kind of new. And you might just take that risk. Be like, you know what? I'm going to take the risk. Maybe I'm going to be wrong. Maybe this will be corrected later on and I'll lose that money, but it's worth it because 9 times out of 10, I have been right on these things and I've made money from that. So I don't mind the financial risk because the financial reward might be greater. And of course, you don't have to use these services. You can just post whatever you want. But a lot of people could actually grow to only trust news that has a prediction market bet on it, that has some sort of a collateral behind the long-term truthfulness of the story. And so if you just see someone posting breaking news, this blah 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 blah, and you don't see a little stake behind it, then you just be like, whatever, this is some like stupid clickbaity guy, or this is just maybe a satire site, and then when you do see that actual thing behind it, you can be like, oh wow, really? And if you were actually there on the scene of the story or whatever, you have insider information, and they say this breaking, this thing that is wrong, you can be like, oh, they don't even know. Bet against it and just say, look, I'm betting a lot of money against this story being true because and then, a few days or weeks or months or however long it takes for the truth to get out and established, through a scientific method or something like that, then you could make it big from, betting against that. And just having that market for truth, I think, can really make sure everyone's incentives are aligned in that way. At least I would really love to try this out. I mentioned this prediction market leveraging approach as a possible solution to Twitter and social media's problems with fact-checking. All right, so what's the worst crypto article you've ever seen written? Please don't hold back. Find something that's just awful and terrible, or just mention it in comments. I don't care. Let me know, because this is a very funny subject to me, because I kind of came into this space as a journalist, as a person that covers news, and just the rest of the field is not really that good at all. and I've seen a big disparity between people, but also I've seen people accusing me of saying some stupid stuff and whatever. I like to just get this problem out there and talked about, so hopefully it gets fixed at some point. As I've mentioned a bunch of ways it could be fixed. So let me know, and I will see you guys next week.